Alright, now in this video we're going to look at how to perform non-parametric comparisons of two or more populations using independent samples. Alright, so in this section we will look at a non-parametric procedure that is used to compare the locations of two or more distributions using independent samples. Now the test does not specify an inference about any particular parameter of location, such as the median or the mean. Okay, so this is the same type of setup as we had for the Mann-Whitney test. The only difference now is we can use this procedure to compare more than two populations. Again, the test is based on the ranks of the observations, and these ranks can be either assigned directly by a rater or based on quantitative data that is sorted. The test is a generalization of, and therefore conceptually and theoretically related to, the Mann-Whitney test for comparing two populations using independent samples that we've already looked at. And so the ideas in looking at this test should be fairly familiar to us. Now, the null hypothesis is going to be that all populations are identical. We will denote the number of populations that we're dealing with by k. The null hypothesis is that all populations are identical. In other words, they are one and the same. There's no distinction between them. Any treatments, for example, that we might be applying to experimental units under the null hypothesis have no effect, and so the corresponding populations are the same. The alternative hypothesis is that the populations are not all the same, that at least one population differs from the rest, and in particular, it differs with respect to location. Now, the test that we're going to be looking at is called the Kruskal-Wallace test, and that is a non-parametric alternative to analysis of variance, which again, as you know, is used to compare the means of a number of populations using independent samples. The null hypothesis here is that all k populations are identical in every way. The alternative is that at least one of the k populations differs from the rest in terms of location. But again, we're not phrasing this or expressing this or developing the procedure based on a particular measure of location. We're just talking about, just in general, some kind of shift of at least one of the populations away from the others. And so the data, we've got k independent random samples, one from each of the k populations. For each I going from 1 up to k, we're going to denote the size of the ith sample by n sub I, and we will denote the total sample size by n without a subscript. N is just the sum of the individual sample sizes, and so that gives us the total number of observations in the data set. Now, the procedure for processing the data and obtaining the test statistic should look fairly familiar, because we can think of this as a generalization of the Mann-Whitney test. We're going to rank all the observations in one combined sample. We're going to put all those k samples into one, combine them into one sample, and then rank those observations by creating an ascending data array containing all of the observations, assigning the ranks to those observations. Again, if there are tied ranks, then we do what we normally do. We give the tied observations the average rank corresponding to the positions that they hold in that ascending data array. And then once we get done doing that, ranking the observations in that combined data set, then we can think of separating those samples back out with their corresponding ranks so that we can then calculate the rank sums within each sample. Once we rank all the observations in one combined sample, then we sum the ranks within each sample. In this context, we're going to denote the sum of the ranks in sample I by T sub I. So T1 would be the rank sum for sample 1, T2 would be the sum of the ranks for sample 2, and so forth up to T sub K, which would be the rank sum or the sum of the ranks for sample K. Okay, now how do we calculate the test statistic? Well, it's going to be a little more involved. The formula we're going to use depends on if there are any ties in the data or not. If there are no ties, then this is the formula that we're going to use to calculate the test statistic, which in this context is denoted by H. So we can see here that we've got this value out here in front of the summation, And recall that n, without a subscript, is the total sample size, right? It's the sum of all the sample sizes. It's the total number of observations in the data set. Then in this summation, notice that we've got some n sub i's down here downstairs in the denominator. All right, so these are the individual sample sizes that we're dividing by down here. Now in the numerator, notice that we have the square of the rank sums for the individual samples. And so the terms in this summation are ratios. The square of the rank sum of the ith sample divided by the size of that sample, and we add those values up. Once we have that sum, then we multiply by this value up front, then we subtract off 3 times n plus 1. Then if there are ties, then the formula is a little bit different, as you can see, and we first need to calculate this quantity s squared, and you can see that s squared here looks kind of like a variance, and it is actually, but you can see here it involves the individual ranks. So let's see here, oh, I forgot to mention here, up on the previous slide. We're ranking the observations in one combined sample, and we're going to represent or denote those ranks by cap r sub ij. So cap r sub ij is the rank of observation j in sample I. So the first subscript here corresponds to the sample, and the second subscript corresponds to the observation within that sample. And so here in this formula for s squared, we're squaring those ranks. So okay, so I made just a little change here. So we've got a double summation, right? So for each sample, we're adding up the square of the ranks within that sample, and we're doing that across all samples. So that's what we're doing there. And then from that, we are subtracting off n times the square of n plus 1 over 4. Once we have that, then we divide that by n minus 1. So that's this quantity s squared, and then that shows up in the denominator of the test statistic. How do we assess the significance of a particular value of our test statistic? Well, we've got to have some rejection criteria. And for this test, we're going to do an approximation to the true sampling distribution of this test statistic. All right, so this is going to be essentially a large sample approximate test, much like we did for the Mann-Whitney. And it turns out that if the null hypothesis is true, then the sampling distribution of the test statistic h is approximately chi-squared with k minus 1 degrees of freedom. And again, k is the number of populations that we're comparing. And so we are going to reject the null hypothesis for large values of our test statistic h. Without further ado, let's look at an example using the Kruskal-Wallace test. And again, this is a non-parametric alternative to analysis of variance where we're wanting to compare 2 or more populations with respect to location. In this example, we're going to compare 3 methods of teaching a foreign language. And so a foreign language educational researcher conducted an experiment to determine whether there was a difference in 3 methods for teaching a foreign language to children 6 years of age. 10 6-year-old children of similar background were randomly assigned to each of the 3 teaching methods. So we started off with 18 kids, not 18, 30 kids, and we randomly assigned 10 to each of the 3 teaching methods. At the end of a 6-week period, the children were given identical standardized exams. The exams were scored with high scores indicating greater proficiency of the language. Now, because of attrition, we don't have results for all 10 students within each of the treatment groups. Students dropped out for whatever reason. We are assuming here that the attrition was not related to performance. That's important to be true for this analysis to be valid. Okay, so because of attrition, 7 students finished method 1, 8 children finished method 2, and then 6 children finished method 3. Okay, so the scores that they received are given in the table below. So the question is there sufficient evidence at the 0.05 level of significance to conclude that the 3 methods differ in terms of their effectiveness for teaching foreign language? And you might take a look at these values and just see if you can determine that just by eye. We call that chi by eye, since we're doing a chi-squared test. So chi by eye, are there differences across these 3 teaching methods? Okay, so the hypotheses that we'll be testing, the null hypothesis, is that the three methods are equally effective for teaching a foreign language. There are no differences. The alternative is that the three methods do differ in effectiveness for teaching foreign language. Now, we're not specifying in this alternative which ones are different. We're just saying that there are differences somewhere. Implicit in this, though, is that there's a difference in location. How do we do this? How do we process this? Well, again, we've got to rank all the observations in one combined sample. So we combine all the data, all the samples into one big sample. We create an ascending data array of that combined sample, and then we compute the ranks for the observations in that ascending data array. If there are ties, we handle them as usual. And then we've got this notation here that we need to keep track of, the rank of the jth observation within the ith sample. Once we have assigned the ranks to the observations in the combined sample, then we can visualize or think about separating those samples back out, and the samples take with them the ranks of those observations. And now the ranks become the data. And so the first step, once we separate the samples back out, is to sum the ranks within each sample. And so we will denote the sum of the ranks in sample I by T sub I, where I is going from 1 up to K. Now, this is what that looks like once we've separated the samples back out after ranking the observations. We'll see the ranking in just a minute, but this is what the new data set looks like. Remember, we're essentially replacing the original data set with a new data set, where the new data set consists of the ranks. And so this is the new data set that we'll be analyzing using this Kruskal-Wallace testing procedure. And since there are ties, go back here, because we see 12.5 there and a 12.5 there, and then we've got an 8.5 and some 5.5s and so forth. Those are there because there were some ties. And so since there are ties, then the formula for computing the test statistic is given here. And we do have to calculate this S-squared value first. So anyway, we have to implement this somehow. We can either implement it by just do it by hand, or we can implement it in a spreadsheet, and that's the approach that I'm going to take. Basically what I did was I took the spreadsheet that I'd created for the Mann-Whitney test, and I adjusted it, I tweaked it, modified it to calculate the quantities needed for the Kruskal-Wallace test. So here is that spreadsheet. Let me zoom in here. Now this is what the spreadsheet looks like after I have done all the work. So I entered the data in the order that it's given in the data set, in the table. All right, so methods 1 and then 2 and then 3 with their corresponding scores. But then I sorted the spreadsheet according to the values in column 3 here, the score column. And so I created an ascending data array. You can see those values are increasing. And then from there, I hand entered the ranks. Now, let me just say something here. This spreadsheet and the spreadsheet that you would use has a rank function. And in using that rank function, you don't even have to sort your data. But at least for my spreadsheet program, it does not handle ties correctly. It does not handle ties like we want to handle them. And so that is why I am going through this process where I sort the data by hand, creating this ascending data array, and then entering the ranks by hand. So when there are ties, I can handle those appropriately. One of the nice things that is programmed in so it gets done automatically, again, are these columns here. Essentially what we're doing with these columns is we are separating back out the samples and taking along the ranks with us. And so again, this column is pulling out the observations from sample 1, pulling out the ranks. This column is programmed to pull out the ranks from sample 2, and this column is programmed with cell formulas to pull out the ranks from sample 3. So these are the RIJs, the ranks. Remember, I also needed the square of those values, so I've got those over here, and those are programmed in with cell formulas. And to implement these various formulas, I've used the spreadsheet functionality to do that. When we go through all that, we find here that S squared is 38.4, and so that's this value right here. And then I need that in the denominator of calculating the test statistic. And so it turns out that the test statistic is 10.7926. So you can calculate these formulas however you want. You can build a spreadsheet, you can use a calculator and so forth, but if you try to do it by hand, there's a great potential for error, and if you're not careful, you might get a lot of rounding error. So I really encourage you to use a spreadsheet if you can. So let's see here. We found the test statistic to be equal to 10.7926. The rejection criteria, well, we know we're going to reject for large values of the test statistic. So how large? Well, we're using a 0.05 level of significance. So all we have to do is go to the chi-square table and look at the row corresponding to 2 degrees of freedom. We've got k equal to 3 populations, 3 groups. The number of degrees of freedom associated with this test is k minus 1. So in this case, it's going to be 2. So we look up the upper 5th percentage point of the chi-square distribution with 2 degrees of freedom, and we find that to be 5.991. And so since our test statistic, 10.7926, is greater than 5.991, we reject the null hypothesis and conclude that the alternative hypothesis is true. Putting this back into the language of the problem, we can say that there is sufficient evidence at the 0.05 level of significance to conclude that the 3 methods differ in terms of their effectiveness for teaching a foreign language. And so this is how we do it. This is how we do the Kruskal-Wallace test, at least by hand, and we're using a spreadsheet. And again, seems very similar to this process that we went through for the Mann-Whitney test. But that's because they're related, so they should look similar. All right, so that is how we do the Kruskal-Wallace test. We'll follow up with some additional videos on some other topics, and we'll pick things up in the next video.